Welcome back. This is the last part of this module. So we talked about what we should eat, that carbs and the percentage of carbs and fats aren't really as important, but getting enough protein really is. But now we want to talk about when to eat specific macronutrients. A lot of people used to say, you don't eat carbs at night. You're going to you don't need them, so they sit there and they turn to fat. And again, that's bogus. Carbs really don't turn to fat. One of the reasons people will say not to do this is they say, well, your metabolism slows down so much at night. And again, that's actually not correct. In many people, sleeping metabolic rate is higher than resting metabolic rate. Like, meaning if I'm comparing my metabolism now, I'm at rest. Let's assume I'm not talking and I'm measuring metabolism. And I compare that to sleep. In a lot of people that sleep, it's higher. We also know that people who habitually exercise, their sleeping metabolic rate is higher. Another reason to exercise. And we also know that people that have higher REM sleep have a higher sleeping metabolic rate. And so that's not a valid reason. Instead, we should consume carbohydrates based off of our biological clock. Meaning, meaning, is it more biologically prudent to eat carbs earlier in the day or later in the day? This research first got started because of research on Ramadan. In Ramadan, these individuals, these Muslims, they all practice it and they fast. And what they do though is because they fasted all day, they have a really large evening meal, which we have said isn't the best. But what we care about is that evening meal is very, very high in carbohydrates. So they're consuming the most of their carbs at night. And so researchers in 2014 wanted to say, well, let's look at this. And they found that in men during Ramadan, even though they were eating more calories, because the higher percentage of carbs were at night, they found that men lost weight. They also found a favorable shift in this hormone that we call leptin. Leptin is a hormone released from your fat tissue. When leptin is high, you're not as hungry, you don't want to eat as much. So this is where the research got started, and then we've had some more better studies follow up. This was a really good study that said, well, because of what I just showed you in Ramadan, these authors said, well, let's actually do an experiment. They actually took police officers and they had them eat the same exact food. The only difference is one group ate more of their carbs at night and the other group ate more carbs earlier in the day. Same total calories, just more carbs at night, more carbs during the day. And what they found is that the experimental group is the group that ate more carbs at night, is that they lost almost 12 kilograms versus only 9 kilograms when they ate carbs at night. So they lost more weight eating the majority of their carbs at night. Follow-up research has also confirmed that this is the case. Here's another study that looked at the effect of our metabolism if we eat more carbs earlier in the day or not. And so in this study, what they did is they compared eating, they called nocturnal carbs, more carbs at night. So 61% of their carbs came at night versus only 20% of carbs came at night in the other group. What did they find? They found that there was adverse effects of energy metabolism when eating the majority of carbohydrates at lunch. Meaning when you ate carbs at night, there was favorable effects. And so, and the data is clear on this. Let's add protein to the mix and then we'll kind of tie this together. This study looked at the effects of eating protein earlier in the day. And they found that when you have a protein-rich breakfast, or we'll say earlier in the day, that your appetite goes down and your fullness goes up over the course of the day. Again, that's what we want. And so proteins should be consumed earlier. Protein should be consumed earlier. So for us, earlier would be around lunchtime. And carbohydrates should be consumed later. Guys, this whole program I'm presenting to you all fits together. We're going to talk, I'm just introducing this, highlighting now, about how to eat around exercise. You should exercise earlier in the day, and we'll get to this. And you shouldn't eat after you exercise, except for maybe a protein shake. What that means is if you exercise earlier in the day, and you shouldn't be eating around exercise, most of your carbs will have to be later in the day, which we just showed you is effective. That's the way that the body was built. So what's the take-home message? Consume more protein earlier in the day and more carbohydrates during dinner. Obviously, I'm not saying to consume more calories. Don't get that confused. We made that very clear that eating the majority of your calories later in the day is not good. But if you're going to eat, say, a dinner that's 500 calories, all we're saying is that a high percentage of those calories could come from carbs, and you're fine. You can have rice for dinner. You can have pasta for dinner. That's not going to kill you. Keep the calories under control, right? But as far as having a higher percentage of carbs, you're fine. And actually, based off this data, it is the way that your body was developed. Now, as far as application for this section, we're waiting. We now have to talk about eating around exercise. Once we do that, then we can really develop your program. But that's it for this module. Answer the questions at the end. Again, as always, if you have any questions specific for me with reference to what we've presented today, feel free to send me an email. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'll see you guys next time.